The news that came out this week was unfortunately that India's first Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Danish Siddiqui passed away. He was killed covering the clashes between the Afghan security forces and the Taliban. What's going on in Afghanistan? What's going on with the Taliban? Specifically, what does it mean for India? What does it mean for Pakistan? This is the whole story. All right, this is another episode of The Whole Story. Now, we've told you in the past, basically, Whole Story is a new format in which we try and put together all the information that we can about one subject so you can understand everything about it in one go. Now, this week, unfortunately, we had some terrible news. One member of the journalism fraternity, Danish Siddiqui, who is an award-winning photojournalist, and Danish has done some amazing work. He won a Pulitzer Prize. He's India's first Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of the Rohingya crisis. But even after that, some of the work that he's done in the last couple of years has been astounding. And you would have recognized, and this has become, his photographs have sort of become iconic for the Delhi riots, for, like we were tracking for the entire migrant crisis. His photographs was just amazing. And he's done some amazing work. Now, the news that came out this week was unfortunately that Danish Siddiqui passed away. He was killed while he was in Afghanistan, covering the clashes between the Afghan security forces and the Taliban. And it's been news that a lot of us are still dealing with. But when this news came out, a lot of people asked us about what's going on in Afghanistan, what's going on with the Taliban, what's going on with this fighting, and what does that mean for the entire neighborhood? Specifically, what does it mean for India? What does it mean for Pakistan? Remember, there's a lot going on there as well. So we put together a whole story about everything that's going on with the Taliban. This is the whole story. All right, so I know that we know what the Taliban is. We've gotten fairly used to it over the last several decades, and we understand who the Taliban is. But a quick recap for those of you who don't remember, you're too young to remember. Basically, the Taliban's roots are from the early 1900s. Okay, so this was when there was a Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, and Afghanistan's Pashtun sort of Mujahideen got together and they formed small groups and they started to fight the Soviet invasion. Now, interestingly, this Mujahideen didn't have any weapons. So they didn't have weapons enough to take on the Soviets. And where did they get these weapons from? They got it from the United States. In fact, the United States spent billions of dollars giving them weapons, training them how to use it, and forming these sort of shoring up these resistance groups in the Soviet-Afghan wars back in the 1980s. Now, when the Soviets left from Afghanistan, there was just chaos after that, because you had these small resistance groups, which were largely tribal groups led by tribal leaders, all of whom were now armed with really strong arms given to them by the US. So then a civil war broke out between these groups, and there was chaos for many years. And off that civil war emerged the Taliban. Now, interestingly, the Talibs are students. So these were fundamentally Pashtun students who were studying. They were from Islamic schools who had actually gotten together. The Taliban basically swayed power over the country of Afghanistan between 1996 and 2001. And it's really remembered for its extremely strict Sharia Islamic law that they brought about. They were, of course, visuals that we remember of public punishments. They were executions, amputations, stoning that took place in public. There were rules like men were required to grow their beards. Women were not allowed to work unless it was doctors, and also women doctors were only allowed to see women patients. There was so much. Girls were not allowed to go to school after they turned 10 years old. No woman was allowed to leave her house without being accompanied by a male relative. They had to wear full burqa and hijab at all points. The Taliban also banned television, music, cinema, and books. They famously destroyed entire libraries and entire museums. And the visual, of course, that none of us will forget is when they blew up the Buddhas at Bamiyan in 2001. They were 6th century two Buddha statues that were carved into the side of a hill. That were destroyed because they were not seen as in line with the culture. What happened after that was that the US invaded Afghanistan. because it refused to hand over, the Taliban refused to hand over Osama bin Laden. And immediately, a few months after that, a new government was put in place, a new constitution was put in place, and the US and NATO kept their troops in Afghanistan for peacekeeping and to aid the new government. It's been now 20 years since that. And the US has now decided to pull its soldiers and to pull the NATO soldiers out. So it's given itself a deadline of September 11th, which will be the 20th year anniversary of the attacks on New York. The Taliban has been taking advantage of the situation and sort of coming back into a resurgence. Now, what you should know is that over the last 20 years, it's not like the Taliban disappeared, but they had formed a resistance of sorts, and they were in small pockets. They continued to mount resistance to the US and the NATO forces, which they saw as a foreign occupation, and against the Afghanistan government, which they saw as an illegal government in that country. So there was fighting constantly happening. But now, with the US pulling out its forces, the Taliban is now taking over more and more space and inching towards taking over larger stretches of the country. But this has not happened overnight. The US began conversations with the Taliban back in 2018. And 2 years later, February 2020, they met in Doha when they struck some sort of an understanding in a deal where the Taliban, the US committed to withdraw its troops, and the Taliban committed that they would not attack US forces. And they also promised that terrorist, groups like Al-Qaeda, for example, will not be allowed to operate within the areas that it controls within the country. It didn't matter what that discussion was about, because in the year that followed, the Taliban continued to target Afghan security forces and civilians, and things have gotten really, really worse in the last couple of months. Now, in the second week of July, the Taliban claims to have occupied 85% of the territory of Afghanistan after seizing key border crossings with Iran and Turkmenistan. So the Taliban is saying that it has 85% of the country. The Afghanistan's ambassador to India, speaking to NDTV earlier this week, he made a statement. He said that the situation is extremely dire and it's extremely problematic, and the government forces are actively fighting the Taliban in 150 out of 376 districts. So he basically said 1/3 of the country is at war, or what he called an active fight. And over 2 lakh people have been displaced internally since April this year alone, and close to 4,000 have been killed. He said, "We are under the assumption that the Taliban will take the peace process seriously and they will negotiate a lasting, dignified peace with the Afghan government, yet they choose the path of violence." Now, some of the details that are emerging from the ground are extremely gory and extremely worrying. Like, for example, last week, CNN verified a video that they put up in which the Taliban had rounded up 22 commandos of the Afghan security forces. These commandos had surrendered. They still executed them in broad daylight in front of all the townspeople. And in the video, you could see bystanders were pleading and begging to let them go, because it was effectively Afghans shooting Afghans, Pashtuns shooting Afghans. And they said, "Please don't do this, please don't do it." But they went ahead and shot them all down anyway. So this sort of like brutal, gory sort of violence is making, is coming back, from videos that we're seeing from Afghanistan now. There have been conversations and talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban, but hasn't really gone anywhere. According to a report in Al Jazeera, a senior delegation of the Afghan government and Taliban representatives also met in Doha July 17th for a high-stakes negotiations as the violence escalated. But the two sides, which have been meeting, like I said, for months now, have not made any headway. Even this Doha meeting has not made any headway, because both sides keep saying that they're committed to dialogue and they believe that actual dialogue is the only way out to peace. But both of the sides are also accusing the other side of basically being stubborn and adamant and not giving any room. So we have no breakthrough yet. But there's experts who are watching this from across the world have grim sort of expectations. So the US, intelligence community, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal very recently, has said that, in the third week of June, this report came out. They said the government of Afghanistan will collapse in as little as 6 months of the US military withdrawal the country, will be taken over by the Taliban. The American intelligence agencies had revised their previous estimates because the Taliban was sweeping into, power in so many parts so quickly. And also apparently because Afghan security forces, which were given ammunition and Humvees and equipment by the American government, were abandoning that equipment and their Humvees and everything to the insurgents and fleeing from those spots. And every time that happened, it only made the Taliban even stronger. Now, there is conflict here between the Afghan government and the Pakistan government, and accusations that the Afghan government is making that Pakistan is supporting terror, and that the Pakistan government led by Imran Khan is supporting the Taliban. So Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has pointed and charged the neighboring country of Pakistan of not severing its relationship with terror groups. He said, and I'm quoting him, he said, contrary to repeated assurances by Prime Minister Imran Khan and his generals that Pakistan does not find a Taliban takeover in Pakistan's interest, networks and organizations supporting Taliban are openly celebrating the destruction of assets and capabilities of the Afghan people and state. Now, the Afghanistan president has also said that more than 10,000 jihadi fighters have entered Afghanistan from Pakistan in the last 1 month, and that Islamabad has failed to convince the Taliban to participate seriously in peace talks. Now, to this, in response, Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has said that this is unfair. He said Afghanistan is a natural land bridge between Central Asia and South Asia, and peace in Afghanistan is the most critical factor. Pakistan will continue to support all initiatives of peace and reconciliation in Afghanistan. He then went on to say, President Ghani, let me say the country that has most been affected by turmoil is Pakistan. Pakistan has suffered 70,000 casualties in the last 15 years. The last thing Pakistan wants is more conflict. But it has not been convincing for the government of Afghanistan that Pakistan is really on the side of peace. And this is one illustration. This is a story that came out just today. It's quite a shocking story, really. The daughter of Afghanistan's ambassador to Pakistan was kidnapped and allegedly tortured in Islamabad. Now, this was actually a statement that was released by the Afghan Foreign Ministry. It said, and I quote, the daughter of Afghan ambassador to Islamabad, Ms. Cecilia Aliki, was abducted for several hours and severely tortured by unknown individuals on her way home. Now, Afghan ministry has called for the Pakistan government to take immediate necessary actions to ensure security of the embassy consulates and their families. The police are investigating this, this incident, but it doesn't help the fact that basically relationships between the Afghan government and the Pakistan government is kind of frosty at this point and is only getting worse. But in the meantime, the real fear on the ground is for the women of Afghanistan who have in the last 20 years made tremendous strides. They are in colleges right now. They are leading corporate offices. They are judges. They are sports people. They're doing so much. And there is a fear that if the Taliban takes over the country, women don't know where that will leave them. Now, according to reports by The Sun, which is a newspaper, the Taliban has issued a statement ordering all the local religious leaders in the areas that they have taken over to give them a list of girls in that neighborhood who are over 15 years old and widows who are under 45, with the intention to have these women and girls married to their fighters and taken to Pakistan's Waziristan, where they will be converted to Islam and reintegrated. This was also quoted by the Hindustan Times in India. Stories like this really, and many sort of voices coming out of Afghanistan of women about how this just seems like another nightmare that is about to begin. Women of Afghanistan calling to the rest of the world to come to their rescue at this point. What is India doing? In the meantime, India is watching the situation very, very closely. India, first of all, evacuated its diplomats and its security personnel from the Kandahar consulate because of the deteriorating situation in Kandahar. Although we do have staff still in Kabul. In Kandahar, we have evacuated. The Ministry of External Affairs on Sunday said safety and security of Indian personnel is paramount, adding that the Consulate General is not closed. Basically, then this is the quote from our ministry. It said, India is closely monitoring the evolving situation in Afghanistan. The Consulate General of India in Kandahar has not been closed. However, due to intense fighting, personnel have been brought back for the time being. And this is a temporary measure. When the situation stabilizes, the staff will go back. Then, like I told you, the unfortunate news that India lost one of its journalists, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Danish Siddiqui was killed while he was covering a clash between Afghan security forces and Taliban fighters. Like I said, he kept uploading updates onto his Twitter handle of he was accompanying Afghan security forces when they were trying to extract someone from a Taliban territory. They were in Humvees that were attacked, by the Taliban. And Danish will be missed. But in response, the Taliban has put out a statement, according to various reports, saying that they do not take responsibility for Danish Siddiqui's death. They've said we're not aware of, whose firing killed the journalist, and we don't know how he died. Any journalist entering the war zone should inform us, and we will take proper care of that particular individual. So this actually brings us to the question of where does this leave India, right? It is a particular challenge for India because if Afghanistan becomes unstable, it destabilizes the entire neighborhood along with Pakistan. And so we're also going to go through what this means for India. Now, in June, the Indian Express quoted Qatar's special envoy for counter-terrorism and conflict resolution. He said he believed, and I'm quoting here, he believed there had been a quiet visit by Indian officials to speak with the Taliban as an organization that is now a key component of the future government of Afghanistan. Later that same day, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar stressed that peace negotiations is the only answer. He stressed that democracy is the only way forward. And he said, and I quote, future of Afghanistan cannot be its past. A whole new generation has different expectations. We should not let them down. Now, while India's foreign ministry has denied basically that the minister, Mr. Jaishankar, met with any Taliban delegation in Doha, they have not denied that the meeting might have taken place at another level. Now, experts basically who are watching the situation saying that the huge problem for India that has invested a great deal in building a relationship with the Afghan government and supporting democracy in Afghanistan. The biggest challenge and the risk for India at this point is that if there is a Taliban establishment, under the Taliban establishment, that Afghanistan will become part of Pakistan's establishment, and that is something India would ideally like to avoid. So ever since the new government came in under Hamid Karzai, since then India has been investing money, energy and relationships in Afghanistan. And just to give you an idea of how much work has been done on the ground, India helped build Afghanistan's new parliament building. We helped build the Salma Friendship Dam, a cricket stadium in Kandahar, roads, dams, electricity transmission lines, substations, schools, hospitals. We've provided development assistance now estimated to be worth about $3 billion from India to Afghanistan. New Delhi has funded the Afghan Red Crescent Society program. There has been free medicine and medical consultations across several cities and technical advice for Afghan public servants and their security personnel. So there's been a relationship that India has invested a tremendous amount of energy in with the current Afghan government now facing the possibility that the country may fall to the Taliban. The other factor, of course, in the neighborhood is China. And just to note what China has been saying, China Foreign Minister Wang Yi had this month basically blamed the United States, and he said the United States has created the Afghan issue in the first place and should act responsibly to ensure a smooth transition. The United States cannot simply shift the burden onto others and withdraw from the country with the mess left behind unattended, end quote. According to the New York Times, China has kept its channels of conversation open with both the Afghanistan government and with the Taliban. Apparently, this also according to the New York Times, a delegation of Taliban leaders visited China in 2019 for conversations, but we don't know the nature of that discussion. recently, the Global Times, which is a communist newspaper, sort of functions like a mouthpiece for the Chinese government, sort of unki godi media types, right? So they had basically made a statement, and I'm quoting it, and this is important, saying, with the evolving Afghanistan situation, the Taliban is quietly transforming itself to improve its international image, easing the concerns of and befriending neighboring countries. So a couple of things to note here, and I'll say it again because, this is an interesting thing. It says, the Taliban is transforming itself to improve its international image. So China seems to think that, if we go via what the Global Times is saying, seems to think that Taliban in some way is a better version of itself now. And it goes on to say, easing the concerns of neighbors and befriending neighbors. So now, multiple neighbors here could also suggest the relationship of Pakistan here in this sort of three-way between China, Pakistan, and the Taliban. And that is something that is going to obviously make India sort of sit up and take notice, in the very least, putting it mildly. And that is why this entire situation over the next, say, 4 or 5 weeks is going to be extremely crucial for India as people in Afghanistan look to the rest of the world, including India, for help as this moves forward. And in India, we're going to be watching very closely to see what happens and how that relationship is going to play out between the big influences in our neighborhood, which is China and Pakistan, the Afghanistan government, and the Taliban. Well, that's the whole story, at least from our end, on what's happening in Afghanistan and the Taliban. If you have any questions or comments, leave them for us. Do remember to like this video, because the more you like the video, the more people get to see it. Share it with someone. It also helps us grow our YouTube channel as well. Subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching.